Starfleet Underground. Every week, we'll take a look at the latest Star Trek news and then check out a current or classic episode of Star Trek. On this special teaser, we have a special guest Vulcan ambassador. We talk a little bit about Star Trek Picard, and we review the two-part Next Generation episode, Descent, where the evil android Lore teams up with the Borg and gives Data bad emotions.
Our guest today is going to be Admiral Tapan, Vulcan. We're actually very pleased that we came across our shuttle.
Admiral Tapan, pleased to be here.
Admiral, we're lucky we came across you. Where were you headed? What's going on with you?
Actually, I am on a mission to Nirvala 4. There seems to be a little problem there, and so I am going to see if I can work it out.
Outstanding.
I heard the other day that Picard, even though it had not started yet, it has already been renewed for a second season. So really excited about that.
Outstanding.
They're just going to make it so more, you know?
Well, they must know they got a good thing if they're ready to give it a second season already. That's something to look forward to.
Yeah, before the show even runs, they know it's that good. That's a great sign. So excited to see what they come out with.
Have you seen the new trailer for it yet?
There's another new trailer.
Yeah, there's a new one that dropped the other day.
Tell us about it.
It's really more of a teaser. It shows more Borg. It shows more explosion. They showed Riker being gruff and everything else and asking Picard, what have you gotten yourself into again? So I'm, for one, are very excited that it's literally around the corner.
Sweet.
I got a kick out of the beginning scene of this show, the first episode.
Wasn't it awesome?
That was so cool. I mean, you're going to collaborate with a bunch of these people. Why not get Stephen Hawking right there? That was great.
Yes. And I just have to say real quick, Hawking is the only person on Star Trek who played himself. And seriously, the entire time I was geeking out. I was so geeking out. Oh my God. Hawking, Einstein, Newton, and poker.
Yeah, I thought Heather might enjoy that sort of thing.
Yes, very much.
That was
my
really
two favorite things combined.
And he had a four-of-a-kind Jack's High.
Yeah.
But I love that, you know, Data is doing that to learn how people interact with each other. And he's trying to figure out emotions. And then he gets this huge experience just right there, this episode. You're going to learn some emotions, baby. He has no idea. He's just doing his little experiment. It's quite a forcing to the whole thing.
Yeah. I agree. He saw that even though the intellect of the three were comparable, it doesn't necessarily mean that they would automatically get along with each other because each of them have different personalities. And so you have to take the whole, not just one element.
And they were from different time periods, too. So seeing those time periods sort of interact was interesting.
Exactly. So they're also influenced by their culture.
I think also it was nice they had little throwaways in there to let you know how long Data probably was on that holodeck, because when Newton started, they said, oh, no, not the Apple story again. So obviously they've been in there for a while.
It's interesting the kinds of Star Trek you watch, because this one was a completely different flavor of Star Trek. It felt more like a Michael Bay action movie in the first half of it, because it was so cranked up with the action.
That's true.
And they added so much to it, too. It wasn't just, oh, Data is, feeling feelings for the first time. It's also, we added lore to it as well. And we added, all of these different components. And I thought that was pretty interesting, how they tied up loose ends from all these different plot stories into one. You have lore, you have the Borg, you have so many different things. I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, it was a grand collection of the storylines and put together in such a way it kept you on the edge of your seat for sure.
Well, there was a lot of interesting things. One, encountering a group of Borg that didn't seem to react like the Borg we know. They were not in a cube. Don't know exactly where that ship came from, but they weren't in a cube, which is fascinating. And they also were traveling through space in a way that up until then I don't think had ever been introduced, and that's that subspace, right?
Yeah, the transwarp conduit.
Yeah. We need to find out more about that.
They really cranked up the technobabble on this episode, because you had metaphasic shielding. There's all kinds of cool stuff.
Yeah, in the Sun's Corona, happily, Beverly and the ensign were able to get that going.
Oh, that was That was so cool.
Mm-hmm.
It shows that the training, in my opinion, where Starfleet, they don't actually touch on that so much. I know that in the service, in Marines, you get trained to know everybody else's job. And Beverly, even though she's a doctor, she showed that she had some solid instincts and command ability to be able to get the second string, so to speak, to be able to get the things they needed to do. You know, it shows that there were competent engineers, there were competent officers on there who we don't get to see because they might work the night shift on the bridge. You know,
well, I love how they added the newbie in there. Oh, it's your first day. Let's have a battle. It's like when you're an acting captain, the last thing you want is to be working with newbies.
I was wondering about that because if you're going to send half the crew away on a search mission, you should leave some good people. You know, if you're not going to have an unexperienced captain, leave the good people in there so they have the solid support. But they did fine with what they had. I mean, that was great. And Beverly Crusher is a badass captain. She should be a captain now. I mean, wow.
I agree.
Yeah.
But as you move up in rank, as Nate said, you get trained not only in your technical specialty, but also in command skills. So while she was a doctor, she also, I'm sure, had gone back for additional training as she moved up the ranks for command. Because at the end of the day, it's leadership, right? And so while not tested, she was somewhat prepared. I agree with you, Rocky. I do not understand why Picard did not leave any experience, with the exception maybe of the doctor, any experienced people on the ship.
Well, I do have to say they did leave one experienced person on there, and it was the captain from the Shield. Oh my God, I nearly flipped when I saw that. He was one of the officers on the bridge, and I'm like, I know him. He's not to be trusted.
The show actually experimented with a couple of things, which I thought from a social aspect. One, it kind of detailed that people need some sort of command structure, because when you was explaining how they had individual voices but no leadership, they were scattered, they were unfocused. And then when Lore came around and gave voice, a lot of them turned around and followed it because they wanted some sort of command structure. Two, it also shows when you have people underneath leadership, be it good or bad, if they coalesce under it, if they become an effective force. Mm-hmm. When everybody has one direction, one way to go. And that's why I think currently the way things go in society, whenever they want to be able to undermine what we're going through, they'll try to pit everyone against each other. So we don't have a solid voice, a solid union to be able to go against. It's always, us versus them. And I think they did a good job showing that.
Yeah.
It's that famous phrase, divide and conquer. You have to divide in order to conquer.
Indeed.
Yeah. And they showed that perfectly, I think, with the show, even by getting Data on their side. Until some of the logic, you figured as an android, he'd figure, like, why am I feeling all the bad stuff and none of the good stuff?
Right.
So it was good in that aspect.
Can I just say something on that point real quick? So when Lore gave Data his good, quote, feelings, I'm sorry, I think I have a sick mind, because the first thing my mind went to was like, is he giving him an orgasm? Like, see, I did a double take and I went back and I had to rewind and I'm like, wait a minute, I have to watch that again. Is that what I just saw?
It's that's an interesting way to look at it. I took it as you're getting high and you want to get back to that high. Emotions for Data is like a drug. It's an addiction. And all of a sudden you get that high and you've got to get more. You don't care about anything else. You just got to get back there.
It's like that injecting heroin.
Yeah. It's
or
one of
morphine
those.
Or whatever.
All the bad stuff. Yeah. Kids don't do drugs.
Yes.
And don't give your android drugs or give them emotions. But
No.
I got more of a kick out of when he was playing in the holodeck, trying to reenact and trying to re-trigger the emotion. And he talked about all the things he went through to try to trigger an emotion. And he also looked at erotic subjects. I thought that was like Data.
Well, it's just a good thing Geordi didn't walk him in on him during the erotic program versus the other program.
Yeah, I think they put a sock on the holodeck door or something. I'm sure there's got to be an international symbol for that.
Been awkward.
Data. Whoa.
I think also with him with the emotion, Ambassador being a Vulcan, I know you also are prone to never show emotion, and it's rumored that Vulcans don't really have them. But I think what happens with him showing the emotion, he's kind of almost like a teenager who's experiencing things for the first time and doesn't know how to give voice to it.
Yes.
I think that's what led to him to wanting to destroy the chip. He wasn't mature enough, even in his program, to deal with what he was feeling.
I agree with you. There is a difference. We Vulcans actually have learned how to control our emotions. However, with Data, they're all programs. And the reason the captain was trying to jerry-rig the transmitter was to block the emotions that Laura was sending to Data, right? So he really doesn't have control of it. It's just what programs are dominant, what programs are running. Where we always have the emotions, they're below the surface, and it is self-discipline to maintain our calm.
It's a fascinating subject when we talk about artificial intelligence and, of course, what it is in modern world today versus science fiction artificial intelligence. What does your android do once it starts getting feelings? And what if it screws it up and they put the code in wrong or something? And how does it interpret the feelings? And maybe it gets emotional in the wrong way. It's like a disaster. So I think it's very important if you have an android that starts to get emotional, you turn off Wi-Fi.
Hopefully he doesn't have unlimited data.
Yeah. But, when you feel angry or you feel happy or you feel sad and you're hacked in such a way that you get addicted to an anger feeling, that's dangerous. That's disturbing. There's a thing in society where we've tried to figure out how to work around that and not get used to doing that sort of thing. But, some people are a little more angry than others, but it's not to the level of your android decides to destroy his best friend. It's kind of really disturbing.
It was interesting to see Data pissed, it was really fun to see the actor like Brent Spiner sort of show through when he's like showing his emotions. You're like, oh, Brent, look, there he is. And then he goes back to Data. It was just really interesting to see him upset. And I think that's one of the things that they talked about for, say, the whole entire 2 episodes was, yeah, he is feeling angry. He is feeling upset. He is feeling these feelings. But what Troy said, feelings are feelings. It's not whether anger is good or bad. It's what you do with it. And I think that is something that a lot of people don't realize or they know about. That's like one of those things where you're teaching. It's okay to feel anger. It's okay to have these feelings. Just, feel them, understand them, know why you're feeling them, and let it pass. And don't try to say, squelch it.
Yeah,
don't repress the emotion, but
understand your emotion, understand where it's coming from. And Heather, as you said, try to understand why, and then how can you turn that emotion, and in this case, anger, into something productive, right?
Exactly.
Again, he had no control over that. But generally speaking, for humans and for humanoids, we should do that.
There was one of the things one of your fellow Vulcans had taught me back in the day. They said, picture my emotions like a lake and whatever I'm experiencing as a bird flying over that lake. While it's flying over that lake, the reflection runs deep and you see it. So when I'm experiencing something, experience that while it's there. Hold it deep, look at it, understand it, perceive it. But once that bird flies over the lake and it's gone and the reflection's gone, you need to let go of it. It is no longer there.
Holy cow, that was way more poetic than what I was trying to say. And you said it so much better.
That's deep, man. I love it.
A great Vulcan philosopher.
They took LaForge's eyeglasses. You don't take someone's eyeglasses. That's so messed up.
But that's how they discover the carrier wave, so you got to take them.
Yeah, exactly. But you can't take someone's eyeglasses.
It is messed up.
It is lore. Lore, we all agree, is messed up.
True.
It's not a normally balanced human being that did that. It was Lore, who, as we all agree, is very much skewed in his personality.
I wonder what happened to Lore in the beginning, the specifics. Did something like similar to this happen to him where he latched on to an emotion and it was just the wrong one to latch onto and he became a monster? It's curious. It makes you wonder about that.
Well, with Lore, the way I saw it was he only had a chip for emotion, so technically he lacked what us humans had, which is empathy. And I think that's what created him into this monster of manipulating people and being horrible to people and abusing people. And that is our classic villain, you know?
Absolutely.
No empathy.
Yeah.
And that's a really good point, because he really didn't feel anything other than for himself. Even when he point where he thought his brother wasn't going to be with him anymore, he was ready to toss him under the bus.
I was just going to bring that up. Yep.
Yeah, right. Without a heartbeat. I mean, there were no heartbeats, but in an android. But just you're done. Thank you. Bye.
And the way he said it too, he's like, I am going to make the ultimate sacrifice by killing my brother. It's like, what? That's not the ultimate sacrifice. You want to make the ultimate sacrifice, you die for your cause. But no, he's not willing to do that. I'll sacrifice my brother, someone who is getting in my way, who's annoying. And then that way, it takes care of two problems at once.
Yep. Laura's messed up.
Yeah.
He's a megalomaniac. And if it doesn't directly affect him positively, everything is up for grabs. It is very clear.
Well, now he's in a drawer. Makes me wonder how, if they are going to bring Brent back into Picard, because we did see that he was in a drawer somewhere. I'd be curious whether or not if they're having that as a deep secret to surprise people, that all of a sudden he's going to show up in the series somewhere, or else why even show him in the drawer?
A very good question. I wonder if they're just teasing us with, and he's just a flashback, but you'd never know. And that's, of course, we'll find out eventually. We will find this out.
It would be really great if they did bring him back. But one of the fun parts would be if they use, say, his body to bring Data back, and you think it's Data again, but then underneath, Lore's still there, and he was awoken, and that type of a thing. That's what I'm hoping for.
Or, what they could do? They could do even a third personality. Brent Spiner is such a dang good actor. I bet they could come up with another version of an android we would love.
Yeah, well, they have B4 that was in Nemesis. So you do have a third kind of copy of Data. You have the prototype, the experiment that's kind of slow mind and everything, which was B4. Then you had Laura, obviously, that came, and it was like too emotional. And then we had Data. So I'm curious of what they're going to do, because we still don't know what happened to B4. He's out there somewhere.
Exactly. That's my thought, that the drawer maybe is actually B4. And he was beginning to, in the last episode of Nemesis, you could see that some of the synapses, some of the Data's programming was starting to break through when he sang the song.
You're going to make me cry. Thinking back to that moment.
With this new series, that's one of the things I'm really hoping they don't go this route. I don't want them to go the route of, say, doing new episodes, new TV shows where it's all action, like Discovery, all action, and there's not so much on the plot points, and there's not so much on the background, but it's like all, explosions, and it's the J.J. Abrams version. I don't want them to go that route. I'm really hoping they stay with the old Next Generation, where they focus on morals and they focus on ethics and they focus on, there are problems out there. They're really hard, and there's no right or wrong answers, and everything's gray, and no matter what you do, there's going to be consequences. I would rather them focus on that. Yeah,
it's a different era today with the way they tell stories, and I agree. I don't mind action. I love action. I love the explosions and the kabooms and starships flying around and doing things and firing phasers, and it's great fun stuff, but if you don't have the intelligence behind it, it's not as fulfilling.
Right.
And in the 80s and 90s, it's a different style of filmmaking back then. I mean, literally, there was filmmaking. They had film in the cameras. You had to perform like an actor on a stage to get your stories across. And today, the cameras are digital. You can rerun that scene as many times as you want. And if you don't like it, we can modify it in post-production and change the effects in the background. We can do it on a green screen. We can do all those wonderful things they did with Star Wars and really overdo it. There's a temptation to overdo it, but there's also, you have to look back at the entirety of Star Trek and remember where we're coming from. And you've got to tell these stories, and you got to tease the mind and give us that good stuff that Star Trek is. So I really hope we get at least a combination of the both. I mean, I don't mind some actions. You got to love some of the action in Discovery. But yeah, I want to think about stuff too.
Right. But with the action, when you have a lot of action and explosions and that type of a thing, that's the glitter on the cake. I mean, you need the substance and the story, the morals, the really deep thinking. That's the substance. That's the cake. You can't have just all glitter and no cake.
Well, that's what this story had both. It had all of the cake and a lot of glitter for a Star Trek episode. And I haven't gone through the entire, I'm still rewatching. So I'm still in season 4 and jumping ahead to 7. It was like, oh my God. It was like I put a Michael Bay film on. I swear to God, I was going to wait for a transformer to walk across the screen because this action was turned up to 11.
The cake is like, a lie.
Wow. Exactly. That cake was on fire. Somebody put the candles out. Yeah, so it was cool. I liked the action. But also the second half of the episode was not as much action because they blew a lot of it in the first one. So you had to sit there and get the psychological part of it. It was terrifying to see Geordi tied up on that, getting operated on by a crazy android. That was freaky. And that was a completely different type of action. It was action in the mind.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to see Star Trek bring back that action for your mind,
I think that, looking across the timeline that Picard has been with us, that he is indeed at the core an ethical individual with integrity and honesty. And I think that will still come through, I'm hoping, in Picard, regardless of the amount of actions and that happens. And that while not only has it changed and time changed in terms of film and viewers, but it's been over 25 years since Nemesis. So the environment in which he is re-injecting himself is going to be equally different. But hopefully that core will run through it, even though there's going to be, other types of influences and context. But I think why people are so excited is because they so want to make sure that Picard stays true to himself, regardless of the situation. Just my 2 pennies.
I have to agree with you on that because they know they have a lot riding on it.
What was your overall opinion of Discovery, and do you want Picard to go in the same direction, or do you want it to go in a different direction?
I think Picard's going to go his own direction. I think there's going to be more modern influences to it, and I think we're going to like them. I think we're going to still be more, they said they're going to not be quite as J.J. Abrams as Discovery is. Exactly. So I can't wait to see more of the thinking. We like to think about stuff sometimes. It's nice to get the good, juicy information and entertainment from Star Trek. I like Discovery, though. I think there's a tendency in it to take and do the beginning of the story carries on through the end. We're running a big, giant movie as opposed to several chapters in a book that may or may not connect. I think we're missing something from having a bottle episode where it's just about the one thing. It's not necessarily connected to all the other stories. We loved the way storyline connected in like Deep Space Nine and went throughout a lot of the seasons. And that was wonderful. And it's a thing we're doing a lot now in TV shows, especially when you can binge it on Netflix. You can follow the story forever. It's great stuff. But, there's something magical about the weird oddball sci-fi story that just pops in for an episode. And I think we need to have some of that too in Discovery. I think we need some of the oddball, weird, strange things that just come out of nowhere and don't necessarily connect with the rest of the show.
I kind of agree with you on that, like they did with the shorts. The shorts could have been integrated and they could have expanded it more so into it. That, like you said, that had no real connective tissue, but gives you kind of an insight on the character of the show or whoever they focus on more.
Yeah, I like what they're doing with the shorts, but sometimes they're doing it they're having a little too much fun with it. I think they need to be a little bit more hardcore in the sci-fi.
Are you talking specifically about the animated? Animated ones, or all broadly speaking?
I think broadly speaking, I would like to see more independent shows that stand alone. But the shorts are great. Sometimes they're a little overkill. I think I did like a lot of the shorts. A lot of fun. The last animated one was just too much fun. I really enjoyed it, but I don't know if I'm supposed to be taking all of these shorts seriously. from the Tribble one and the animated one. It's just kind of like, what do we expect? This isn't quite exactly Star Trek, but we're having fun, is what I'm getting from them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the two shorts that stand out the most to me that I thought was really good was one where the Discovery's in the future and it becomes a sentient AI, and that guy is on there. And basically how he takes care of the ship, takes care of him, doesn't know why the ship saying, I don't know why I'm here. They told me to wait. And it's obviously far-fetched in the future. And then gives the guy a shuttle pod and he leaves. Well, the scenes for next season of Discovery shows that they circle back to that guy is out there. But I thought that was a real well done standalone kind of episode that at that time I didn't see it had any connecting tissue. And the other one that I liked because it showed a lot of backstory was the origin story sort of Saru.
Correct. Yes.
How Saru made it.
I'm kind of split on the shorts because you're exactly correct. I loved both of those episodes, but the comical ones are a little, I mean, they're fun, but I'm like, come on, seriously, guys, I'm looking for a little bit more seriousness out of you. Well,
I think they're trying to throw the net also a bit wider.
Yeah.
Said that, right? So some of the animated is actually for children to introduce them to. The more serious ones are for sort of the Trekkies already indoctrinated. And for others, they're trying to put teasers out there to get them, to pull them in. So we'll have to wait and see. I agree with the one that took place, the short that took place in the future. Well, it's not that much of a future anymore in Discovery because they will be out just about at that time period. So there probably will be a link at some point as to why the ship has been left there. The other thing I wanted to just go back, we were talking about Picard, is that, we've referenced the studio, the runners, Roddenberry. But I think the person who is will be as influential is the primary actor himself.
Sir Patrick Stewart
is, I think, as wedded to this being good as any of the others. He has nothing to gain by it being this shoot 'em up type of thing. He has created a character, and I think he will probably want to, in some way, protect that character. Not the scenes, not the story, but the underlying core of that character. And it took them a while to convince him to go back. So I think he will also be a very steady rudder in terms of what comes across with Picard.
I agree with you on that one.
Yeah, I think Patrick Stewart's the kind of guy that, considering the work he's done and something that, he hasn't come back to the show in so long, and suddenly he's decided to do it. I really look forward to see what that material is that he saw that he thinks that he should have done and we want to see. Yeah. I'm curious to see that. It's got to be great. Starfleet Underground, beaming in January 2020 to a podcast feed near you. Log on to our website at starfleetunderground.com and send your comments and questions to thecollective@starfleetunderground.com. Follow us on Twitter at StarfleetUnderG and on Facebook and Instagram, we're Starfleet Underground.
And just remember one thing, don't just have a nice week, make it so. This was Starfleet Underground.